Hello and welcome to this brand new series in Unreal Engine 4 where you'll learn to create a first person shooter from scratch. A first person shooter, something like Call of Duty or Battlefield or any of those first person shooter games that you must have definitely played. So if you always wanted to learn how to make a first person shooter in Unreal, this is the place. This is the tutorial. This is the course you got to follow. We'll do everything from scratch, right from creating a new project all the way till all the way to creating the AI and everything else. So it's going to be a lengthy course, and we'll be using a lot of free assets from the marketplace. And in the next video, I'll teach you how to set up the project, how to get started with it, and how to download and what to download from the marketplace so that you can get started with it. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. All right, welcome back. So now we're gonna get started with with creating the projects and all that. We gotta take a different approach. So make no mistake. So if you are going over, if you're starting up the Unreal Project browser, if you go over to the new project, if you want to create a first-person shooter, then you can pretty well select this and get started right away. But there's a problem with this. So let me show you what the problem is. So I'm not gonna go for the starter content this time, and instead I'll just select the proper folder and I'll just go over here, projects, and I'll just select that, and I just call this test FPS, and this will be discarded anyways. I just want to show you what the exact problem with the first person template is and why we won't be using that to get us started. Instead, you'll be using something else. Okay, I won't be using the starter content as I said, and maximum quality, everything is okay, and I'll just create the project. So make sure that you are in Blueprint and not in C++, but in Blueprint, and select the first person template. And no, actually you don't have to follow, I just want to show you. But the next template that we'll be using will be, you'll have to follow along. All right, and while that's loading, let me also show you what you'll have to download. So if you go to library, or if you just go to marketplace, there's something called animation starter pack, and you hit enter and give it a while, and there it is. So now you have two of these. Okay, you have animation starter pack by Epic Games and a zombie starter mocap pack by these guys. And but that comes for a money, that comes for a price, while this is by Epic Games and is free of cost. This comes along with a lot of animations like crouching, going prone, running, strafing, and shooting and reloading and jumping, and bunch of other stuff which is quite helpful in our particular project. Okay, so you can go ahead and download this. You just have to click on that and wait for it to load. And if you haven't downloaded it, then it'll give you a download button here, and then this button will change to add to project. And once it's downloaded, you just click add to project, and you can add it to the project later on, right? But just wanted to let you know. Anyways, a test FPS is loaded up. So there it is. Now if I just hit play, now you can see, okay, it's all there. I mean, I can jump, I can shoot, and of course I can if I look down, I don't see anything. Okay, and it's a very classic method of creating a first person shooter, where all you have, if I escape and if I look at the first person character, this is the first person character, all you got are the arms of the character and a couple of guns, couple of weapons, and a camera. And the camera is where the head is supposed to be, so that's why it looks like the person is holding the camera. Otherwise there is no body at all. There's just a capsule that holds all of these things. Now, which is not very, it's not very realistic. But back then in the like mid to late 90s, where they wanted to save a lot of computation cycles, so they just used to have an arm and a weapon, because anyways you're not going to see it. So that changed later on, when people started to add a full character onto it, because when you're playing multiplayer, then you definitely have to have a character. So it's not very appropriate for you to play multiplayer and the other player in the same server looking at just your arms and the weapon, right? Not knowing where to shoot exactly, because this capsule is not going to be visible. So but for a single player game which is not very realistic, this is still good to go. It shoots. If you really want to create a quick prototype to test out what your idea is like, then you can go ahead with this. Otherwise, if you want something more realistic, then you have to go with something which has a full body, which is why we're not going to be using this. We're going to be using something else. So go over to the new project, Okay, and out here we'll be selecting a third person template because this first person just comes with the arms and the weapon, and all of these are not required. We just need the third person where it has the full body. Now agreed, it's a third person, and it's gonna perform, it's gonna behave like a third person as the template suggests, but we're gonna tweak it to our needs. We'll make this, we'll turn this into a first person while keeping the character. So when you look down, you're going to see the legs of the character and all that. So which is more realistic way to go about it, right? So let's get started with this third person template. Okay, so go ahead and select the third person, desktop and console, and maximum quality. And this time we're going to include the starter content because there are some good stuff there. You can use that for, I guess, particles and bunch of other things, and also quite a lot of meshes that come included with the starter content. Okay, so you can name anything you like. I'm going to name this FPS course because that's what this is. It's an FPS course, and I'll create the project. This might take a little longer than the first person template because we did not include the starter content with that, but in this we are including it. So I'll just create the project and just wait for it to load up, and let's just wait. And in the meantime, I hope you have downloaded this. It's not it's not this it's not it doesn't have a big size. I believe it's not even 500 megs. So once you have this ready, we're gonna connect it with our FPS course or the new third person template project that we just creating, right? So give it a minute more, it should be done. It's 91% done. There you go, I think it's done, and there we have our third person template. And once we hit play, there you can see that we have this guy running around, and if I move around, I can see the entire character, the torso, the hips, the legs, the arms, the head, and everything else. The whole body is out there, the whole character is out there. That's exactly what we want. This is more realistic than just having arms and a weapon, right? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit escape, and I will click on this thing. I don't like this, and I'm just going to hit delete. I don't need it. And also this guy, I don't need this at all. Save. Now we're gonna go ahead and modify this character in a way that looks like a first person character and behaves like one. Okay, so this is about the setup for the game that we're going to be creating throughout the course, and I'll see in the next video where we will start tweaking this third person character template, and we'll also bring in the animation starter pack inside this project. Okay, thank you. Welcome back. So now we're gonna take a look at the third person character and turn that into a first person character. So right now we have this, hit play again. We have this, the camera is behind the character. We're gonna change all of that. Okay, I'm gonna hit escape, and if you wanna go for the third person, we're gonna open this blueprint up. Either you can select this guy and you can click edit third person character blueprint, or you can go over to this folder here and click on the blueprints, and then you can go over to the third person character blueprint, right? Once it opens up, it'll open up to the event graph with lots of code in it. We're not going to worry about that right now. Instead, we're going to worry about what the character is looking like, or how the camera is going to be set up. So right now this thing has two components or three components. You have the arrow component, which determines where the forward of the character is. Then you have the guy himself, the mesh, the character, and then you have this camera boom, which has a spring arm, and then you have a camera which is attached to the end of the spring arm. Okay, so what we're going to do is the first thing that comes off to your mind is this is behind the character. A first person camera should be somewhere at the head of the character. Okay, so you'll be compelled to actually pull this in closer and maybe position it like this, like that, and maybe do that. Okay, and that's actually good for a start. I mean, that's proper thinking. That's where the camera is supposed to be. Maybe pull it up even a bit more and push it a little, and then you hit compile, and then you start playing it, and you can see that, and it's working fine, right? But I can actually do all of this, but there are a bunch of things that I'll have to change. See, right now, if I hit change, if I hit this, I'm getting these body parts of the character in front of the camera, okay, which is not right. When I'm jumping, that's fine. I can see the hands flailing, so that's cool. That's all cool. But I don't want this to happen. The other body parts are also clipping in front of me. So there is a fix for that, which we're gonna do that. and going back here, so instead of actually directly putting it in front of that, so what we're gonna do is instead we're gonna parent this, or we're gonna make this a child of the character himself. So I'm gonna drag this, I'm gonna drop it over mesh like that, and then once that's done, I I can have all the character motion going along with the camera. So now when I hit play, uh, okay, I'll hit play again. Now, I'm not able to move around. That's because if I'm using my mouse to move around, I'm not able to do that because the character is gone. So for that to happen properly, see, I'm actually trying to use my mouse, but I'm not. I'm moving a mouse in X and in Y, but nothing is happening. I'm just able to move my character using my arrow key, and which is quite snappy and irritating at the same time. Right. So again, hit escape, and there is another fix for that. So when you click on the mesh, and no, click on the follow camera, and then you can go over first. You have to socket it to the right place, because right now we just made it a child of the entire mesh, but we don't want that. In fact, we want to exactly socket it over to a body part of the character. So now it's right now the parent socket says none. So when you click on this magnifying glass, it's going to show the bunch of sockets that you can connect it to, attach it to, but we just need the head part. So when you type head, the socket comes up, and just type it there, and right away this camera is gonna move here, and that's because of all the rotations and everything. So okay, so first I will make this to 90. Okay, and also this camera is slightly rotated along the x-axis, so I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna bring it back like that. Okay, so this will be minus 90 and 0 and 90. There you go. Okay, now this is actually connected to the socket head, but it's moved away because of these coordinates. So if I again click on this little part, it'll possibly move there, right? And so now it's 0 0 0, and it's parented there. And if you want, you can move around a little bit. So now and one more thing is, it's still not going to fix it. So if I hit play, I can move around, and it's actually kind of jerky, but all the clipping part is done, and my mouse is still not working. I'm still not able to move my mouse. The camera is not moving. That's because when you click on the follow camera, and if you go down here, not here, but if you look at the mesh part, and you can say, I think I should just look for that. Click here, and if I just say rotation, use pawn control rotation. Okay, so once I do that, and this is inside camera settings. Okay, it was right here, I did not see it. And then also click on third person character self, and then I just need to use the use controller rotation yaw. So as the tooltip says, if true, this pawn's yaw will be updated to match the controller's control rotation yaw, if that's controlled by a player controller. So all of that fits right in for us. So I'm going to check that, and then when I hit play, and now I'm able to see my I'm able to move the character. I'm able to move my mouse and look around using the character, and if I look down, I can see parts of the torso and all, which is not right. So I'll move this camera a little bit ahead. I won't be making it to 0 0 0, so I think I'll just move it a little bit ahead like that. So now when I hit play, now I can see that. Now I can see the legs of the character, and also when I jump, I can see the hands, and everything is working perfectly fine. Now of course I can't jump here. I believe, yeah. So I can jump here, and it's all looking great. There you go. I can see the legs, and like that. So everything is working fine. So that's because we actually change the use pawn control rotation. Now if this camera component is placed on a pawn, should it use the view control rotation of the pawn where possible? In fact, it should, because wherever it's already attached to the mesh, it's not only a child of the mesh, it's also attached to a particular socket. So it should take all the rotations of the pawn itself, and should not be independently rotatable. And anyways, your rotation had gone for a toss because we hadn't checked that. So we had to have that if this has to work, because in the event graph, it refers to the camera, which actually is a part of the camera boom, and it does all of those calculations. But in our case, it's not there. It doesn't find the follow camera, so we have to make all of these changes. At the same time, we also made a change here where we said use controller rotation yaw. Okay, so this was a very simple setup, and we still have a very long way to go. So I'm gonna close the video here, and when we return, we're gonna do a bunch of modifications to this character and move on from there. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Welcome back. So what we got so far, I hit play and I walk around, and it's a nice first person controller that we managed to create using a third person template, a third person character template. Great. But right now, for all it works right now, it still looks quite bland, right? So if I hit play now, I can just walk around. There are no HUDs and nothing of that sort. And also the player is gonna have something like an armor, which is represented by some value, and also gonna have health, which is also represented by some value, like any other first-person shooter or any other game which has all of these attributes for a player or a character. So I'm gonna go ahead and make that out first. So I'll head over back to the third person blueprint, and I will not be adding any code yet, but I'll definitely be adding a couple of variables. I need two variables. I need a variable to hold the player's health, and then I need a variable to hold the player's armor. Okay, so I'm gonna click on the variable, and I'm gonna call this health first, and then again I'm gonna call this armor. Right now, health and armor, they're both gonna be floats. Okay, I'll change that to float. Okay, and compile that. Now we have to give them some default values, and the reason it's float is because I want to keep the range of the health between 0 and 1. So a value of 1 would mean 100% health, and a value of 0.5 would mean 50% health, and value of 0.01 would mean 1% health, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's the reason I want to have the health as a float, and for the same reason I want the armor also to be a float variable, right? So anything between 0 and 1, so 1 would represent 100%, so this is on a scale of 0 to 100, which shrinks down to 0 to 1, as simple as that, right? So both I'm going to have them as 1 for default values, and I'm going to move on from there, right? So we will create those bars right now in for the widget blueprints. So when you want to show anything on the screen, you need to have some sort of widgets, UI widgets, and we're gonna create that as a blueprint now, and we'll be using simple bars and whatever we have available for us, but going forward we'll replace them with some good looking fancy graphics. Okay, so since we're just prototyping right now, so we can afford to do that. Anyways, so I'll right click and I'll create a new folder, and I'll just call this UI. Okay, and now inside UI I'll be creating a new widget blueprint, and I'll call this user interface widget blueprint. Okay, I'm gonna name this FPS HUD for right now, or I can just call this HUD, I guess. Yep, I just call this HUD and open this up. I'm gonna need two progress bars at the bottom, and we can later on think about beautifying it, because right now they're just gonna be ugly rectangles sitting down there uh, at this point in the screen, and it'll do its job. But later on we're gonna add all the fancy graphics and we'll make it look good, but not right now. But for now, all we're gonna do is we're gonna drag a couple of progress bars. I'm gonna drag a progress bar down to the bottom here, okay, like this, and I'm gonna name this I'm gonna first anchor this to the bottom. Okay, I'll do this. Okay, and I'll say 0.5 and 0.5 so that it comes up, or 0.5, that's okay. And I'll just bring this up a little bit. So select this. I'll use my arrow keys to bring it up like this. I think that's good enough. Okay, and I'll name this as health bar. Okay, and then again I'll right click, copy, and I'll paste this back in the panel, and of course I'll zero them out. I'll name this as armor bar. Okay, and select that and just move it around like this. Okay, so that's good. Now I'll select the health bar and I'll give it some size. So I'll say Size X can be, I don't know, 300. That's fine. And armor bar can also be 300. Okay, so now we have the health bar and the armor bar. The health bar, I'll choose a color first, and I'll choose something like this, red. Okay, like a pale red. Right, and then for the armor bar, I'll choose something like yellow. Now you're free to choose anything you like, but I'll choose this. Right, that's good. And we have this yellow, little yellow. Now just to make sure that it works, you can change the percentage here. So if I do that, then you can see that the red is filling up, and the armor bar, if I do this, I can see that the yellow is filling up. All great. We have the names now. The reason, now you could probably understand the reason why we made the health bar and the armor bar inside the third person character as floats, and we are calculating it between 0 and 1. The reason being, if the health bar and armor bar, select one of them, and the highest it can go up to is 1, right? So 1 is 100% filled, and 0 is 0% filled, and anything in the middle is 50% or whatever, depending on whatever value you give. Okay, so that's what this is. But obviously we are adding it manually, but we don't want that. We want these progress bars to be bound to this particular variable. So if the health changes for the character, that's going to reflect on the bars here. Okay, so the first thing is I'm going to select the bind button. I'm going to get the bind drop down. I'm going to click on create binding so that I can bind this particular field of the progress bar with something of my choice. Okay, so I'll create binding, and it instantly opens up in a new graph. That's the function. It says get health bar percentage 0%, right? So the first thing is I need to access these two variables. Now how do I do that? Because I'm in a different blueprint here. You can try and type get health. It's not going to be there because it's the health bar, not the health. So what we have to do is we have to first get the player character. Right? And once we get the player character, so the game now knows that there's a player character, but it needs to know exactly which player character are we talking about. So you need to cast this to third person character. Right, now you can either make this a pure cast, or you might want to connect this so that in case it fails, you can display some message. Either ways, that's up to you completely. All right, so now once we have that, of course we're going to connect these two. Okay, so once we have that, now we can say that as third person character we can access these two variables. So let's check if that's the case. And now if I say health and says get health and set health, those are the variables inside third person character. Excellent, this is exactly what we want. So I'll say get health, and now all I want to do is connect this to this, and it does not need any conversion because this is also looking for a float value, because that's what it is. If I look at the designer, this is a float value. If you run over this, this says used to determine the fill position of the progress bar ranging 0 to 1, which means it's a float value. Okay, so that's why it did not ask for any conversion. It did not have to do any conversion at all. Now you may choose to go ahead and have something printing out to the console or the screen saying that there is no third person character, or a message of your choice. But I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to assume that this is going to work. It's gonna cast, and if it's gonna fail, then I won't know about it, but this thing won't work and also will not crash the game. That's important, right? So we compile that, and then we go back to the designer, and then we select the armor bar, and we do the same thing with the armor bar. So now it says get health bar percent 0, and now when I say create binding, it's gonna say get armor bar percent 0. Do the exact same thing here. The first thing is I will get the player character, and move it back a little bit like this, and from here I will cast this third person character, connect this and connect this. Now again, as third person character, move this a little to the right. As third person character, I'm gonna get the armor bar, or get the armor variable. Okay, and then just connect this to the return node out here. So again, float, it simply connects it without any conversion needed. And when I hit compile, now when I hit play, obviously I'm not going to see anything out here. That's because we have not really added this widget to the viewport. Okay, so now there are multiple ways to go about it. I mean, the code is going to stay the same pretty much every time you want to show a widget or any UI on your screen. The code is going to be the same, but you might just want to rethink, or you might just want to think about the place where you want to put that code. Do you want the third person character to be calling that, or do you want the game mode to be calling that, or do you want the player controller to be calling that? But for now, I'm not going to think too much about that. We'll change that later on. I just want to see what the HUD looks like. So I'll simply add it to the third person character. We can remove it later on, no harm. So where will we add this? We want this as soon as the game starts, as soon as this guy, as the third person character, gets initiated. And the best place for that to happen is the event begin play. So search for begin play, and there it is. So bring that event node, and all we have to do first is we first have to create a widget. So I'll say create widget, right? And once we do that, and now select the class. Now there are two widgets. This is a default that comes along with this project, and this is the one that we created right now. So I'll select that. Now if I hit play, it's still not going to happen. That's because we just created the widget and we did not tell the engine where to display it. So for that, I will say add to viewport. Okay, and once we do that and we compile that and we play the game, and there you go. So now we have these two bars, and we have a red bar which is full, completely full, and we have a yellow bar which is also completely full. Now if you're not sure whether it's working or not, and which is a common question, I mean, which is a common concern, because it's all full, so we don't know if it's working or not. And that's because if you go back to your third person character, the health is 1 and the armor is 1. Now it might be working, it might not be working, we don't know. So let's change this to certain value. So I'm going to change the health to 0.2, that's 20% health, and the armor to I don't know, 0.6. So it's got 60% armor and 20% health. Now when I hit play, there I can see that it's working. Okay, so it's indeed working. Our health bar and our armor bar are indeed working. That's great. Okay, so now that's about how to add this, and obviously we're gonna beautify this later on by adding fancy graphics and adding labels and everything so that people can understand. But we know that this is the way to go, and it's working. And also, it's this one is pretty simple. We don't have anything yet. We're just binding it simply, but we're not we're not changing any of these values, but going forward we will. This will get a little complicated, where when the player is getting hit by a projectile, the armor is going to go down, the armor is going to deplete, and the health is also going to deplete. And for our game, we're going to have auto generating armor but not auto generating health. Okay, and there's not going to be any regeneration of health automatically, but the armor will regenerate over a period of time. So that's all in the books, and that will come in the future videos. But we have things set up in a good way, and we know that things are working. Okay, so in the next video we'll move on with more of these things, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Welcome back. So what we have now is a health and an armor bar, which is not really interactive, which is set which is not being changed at all. It's simply it simply sits at whatever values they were originally set at. That's it. So in this video, we're gonna do something like where we're gonna have a volume somewhere in the map, wherein when the player walks inside that volume, the armor is gonna go from 100 to 1 to 0, and once that goes below 0, then the health is gonna start depleting. And once the player moves away from that volume, then the armor is going to start regenerating. As simple as that. Okay, and now, so the first thing is, before we actually go ahead and add the volume is not going to be seen at all. It could be anywhere. We could place it anywhere in the map, maybe here, maybe upstairs, anywhere. But we'll just place a volume which is not going to be seen. It's going to be invisible, but it will act as a trigger. When the character walks into that volume, all our code is going to will start being called, right? So the first thing we have to do is we have to go back to the first person character. Okay, and wherever we set our event begin play, we will set a tick function here. The first thing is we will first look at the regeneration of the armor, which is the easy part, and but taking the damage away by 5% or 10% or 15%, depending on the volume that the player walks into, that's a little more involved. But we'll start off easy. We'll start off with the regeneration of the armor part, which is a hell lot easier than taking health away. So for that, I need the event tick node. So that will which gets called every single frame, which is built into every single blueprint. So this gets called every single frame. Okay, now we want to restrict this. We first want to create a sequence node where we want to say you do this first and then you do that and then whatever. If you add more pins, then you can have as many nodes as you want, but I'm not going to do that. I just need one, maybe two, but not more than that. So once we have the sequence node, we're going to explain to the engine what we want to do first every frame. Okay. Okay, so the way this is going to work is, even though it runs every frame and we don't know how many frames it's going to run per second, but we'll limit this and we'll say, I just want this to run every second. Okay, like out here the default is 0.2, but we don't want that. It also depends on what you want. Like if you want 5% armor to be regenerated every 2 seconds, then you're going to be adding 2 here. Or if you want 10% armor to be generated every 2 seconds or 1 second, then you're going to add 1 here. So we're going to keep it simple, and we'll fix a percentage later, but I want this to run every second, and every second it's going to regenerate a certain amount, a certain amount of armor value, and it'll add to the existing one. But this only needs to be run when the armor when the armor is less than 1. Okay, so if it's full armor, then we should not we will not worry about it. Instead, and there's no point running this function when the armor is full. It cannot go beyond 100%. So we first will have to check whether the armor is less than 1. Okay, and we do that using a branch node, and from here I will pull out a wire and I'll look for float less than. Okay, so which narrows it down to float less than equals float and float less than equals to float. We need float less than float. Okay, and once that's there, I want to check whether the armor is less than 1, and if it is so, then we're going to run the regeneration code for the armor in the true execution part here. Okay, so now we want to check whether the armor is less than 1. So either you can drag this and drop it here, or you can drag off a pin and you can say get armor. Okay, and I want to check whether the armor is less than 1, and if it is, then I want the armor value to increase till the point it turns 1. Okay, and so out here I'm simply going to say I'll drag this and I drop it here and I'll say set armor. And what value do you want to set this by? I want to set this by I'll say float plus float. Okay, float plus float. Again, I want this to set the armor whatever the current value is. Okay, yeah, plus 1%. So that would be 0.01. There you go. So every 1 second. So if you have 0 armor and if you want to wait to see the armor to get full, then you'll have to wait 100 seconds. That's close to 2 minutes. 20 seconds less than 2 minutes, right? So that's how this would work. And if I compile that and let me see if the armor is 0.6, I'll bring it down to 0.2. Okay, and I'll compile that and let's see if this thing works. I hit play and there you go. And if you can look at the yellow bar, I'll hit shift F1. If you look at the yellow bar, it's actually regenerating. So let's see and go back to 0. I'll make it a 0 armor, and then when I hit play, let's wait for 100 seconds and let's see that it's really working. So, and there you go. Okay, now we don't have a counter here, but this is just going to be ballpark figure, and it's pretty sure the maths can't go wrong. It's 1 second 1% and 0% of the armor, so it'll take 100 seconds to reach 100%, and then it'll stop adding armor to it, right? And let's just see, and right now it should be around point I don't know, 3.5 or 4% or something like that. We'll just wait for a minute more. Now that's the penalty you pay for losing armor. You have to run around and wait for the armor to regenerate. It cannot be even quicker than that. I mean, depends on what your game is. Maybe if you have some boost, or if you have some special powers, if your character has some special powers, then the armor regeneration can happen faster, but that completely depends on the design of your game. But right now we're just testing it out, so it's like 1% for 1 second, and that's good enough. So we'll just see how this works, and it's almost there. It should be around 70%. Just wait for a few seconds more, and once it hits, it's gonna start. It's gonna stop regenerating. Okay, and let's see. And just to check that it works, what we'll do is armor. I'll just go for 0.8%. All right, so that we don't have to wait that long. If this is true, then we are running this. If it's false, then I'm gonna say print string, and I'll remove this off. I just want to test it out. I'll just say full armor stop regeneration. Okay, that's the message. Now if I hit play, and if I see, then it's 0.8%, and it should increase, and within a few seconds I should be getting a message onto my top left which says armor full, full armor, whatever the message that we put there. And a couple of seconds more, less than that. There you go. So it says full armor stop regeneration, but it's gonna happen every 1 second. That message is gonna show up every 1 second. Okay, that's because that's because this loop is still running. After every second, if it comes down here, if it's less than 1, in fact, if it's less than 1, then it's gonna come and do that. And also this duration is 2 seconds. So if I say 1 second, so that it stays exactly for the time where this is. So if I say that, and then I'll just wait for that, and then once we see that thing ticking and running fine, I'm gonna take off that debug message, and we'll move on for taking damage part. And there you go. And now 0.2 seconds later, they have the message. Okay, of course that thing is getting printed every single line, but that's okay. So it's working. At least we know that it's working. Great. Alright, so now I'll just get rid of this. We don't need this debug line anymore. Compile that. There you go. And now let's move on to the tougher part, where we will be taking damage away from the player. Okay, so now that we have this, let's create a new function, and I'll call this take damage 5%. Now you can have different slabs of take damage. Taking damage, this is 5%. Maybe that volume that we walked in was 5%, but there might be other stronger volumes which might take away 10%. Entirely depends on your design, but this is how it goes anyways. So every time this function gets called, I want to take 5% damage away from my armor. So I'm gonna drag this armor here. I'm gonna say set armor. First I'll connect this. Now this would be I want to take away from the armor, so I'm gonna say minus, and this would be float minus float. Okay, and again whatever the current armor value is, minus 5%. So 5% of 1 would be 0.05. Okay, so this reads every time you call this function, first get the armor, subtract it by minus 5, take 5% away from it, and reset it, and reset the new value for the armor. That's how it reads. Okay, so now there's a chance that it will go beyond 0 or below 0, so we have to check that as well. And we're not going to stop that from happening, because we need that negative value, so that we'll use that for subtracting the health or taking the damage from the health itself other than the armor. Okay, and so now I will look for a branch node, and what we want to check, we want to check whether this is less than a certain value. So less than, that would be float less than float. That's what we want. So we'll see whether this is less than some value, and what is that value. Whatever armor we set after that, we want to check whether that's less than 0. And if it is so, then we want to set the health. Okay, I'll set the health. If it is true, then we'll set the health, and this will be, and we'll be adding that to this negative value, so that it starts depleting the health as well. Okay, so now that we have this, I'll move this a little bit to the right, so that I can get some room here. Okay, so I want to take the armor value. Okay, and I want to take the armor value, and I want to add that with my current health value. So if the armor value is 0.5 and the health is 1, then 0.5 minus 0.5 plus 1 would be 0.5. So that's how we'll be taking away part of the health. Okay, and 5% is where it is coming in from the for the armor. Okay, so that exact percentage, once it's below zero, it's going to be applying to the health as well. So that's how we're going to take away some damage from the health, right? And once we are done after taking some damage from the armor and the health, not the armor but the health, then we want to set this armor back to the original value, that would be 0, like that. So we want to set this armor back to 0, and when it starts regenerating, then it will do its job. But right now we have finished our task of uh, depleting our armor and taking away 5% of that, and then checking whether it's below 0. And if it is so, then we gonna take away health. Otherwise, all it's gonna do is take away the armor. And once it goes below 0, then it's time for the health bar to also decrease, because once the armor turns to 0, which means it should affect the player's health naturally. The armor is there to protect the player, so every time the armor takes a hit, it's gonna keep on depleting. And once it goes below 0, which means that the player is vulnerable, so every single hit is gonna get registered on the player, and the health is gonna go down as well, other than the armor. So we're using the armor to deplete in negative values, and we're using that negative value to add that with health, and then we're resetting the health to whatever the new value is after the addition with the armor. And then we are resetting the armor to 0, because it's already below 0, so we're not doing anything more than that. Okay, so now that we have that covered, and of course when you hit compile, you should not have any errors, so that worked fine. Now this take damage function is not going to do anything right now, because no one is calling this function to do anything. So what we have to do now is, I think I'll first change this to on success only, because I don't want to compile and save both, right? And I'll just compile it, also save it. So what I want to do now is I want to create a volume. Okay, a volume where when the player enters, it's going to start taking the armor and the health away. Armor first, and then when it goes below 0, then the health. So I will right click, and I'm going to create a new folder. I'll keep this a little organized. Blueprints, this is our own blueprints, the one that we'll be creating now, and this is already something that we already have. All right, so this is going to be a blueprint outside. So I'll right click, and I'll go for a blueprint class, and I'll go for a very simple actor, and I'll simply call this let's say pane volume. All right, and open that up, and I'll add a box collision right away, and I don't need to rename that, I'll just keep it box. And when I hit compile, save, when I drag and drop it here inside the level, and you can see that it's quite small, right? Now of course I'll go back to the pane volume, and I'll have to increase the extents, or I can either use the box extent out here, or I can simply scale it up in either axis that I like. So if I say this is the x or the z axis, so if I say I want this to be a little taller, and I'll say 64, okay, at 64, and which is fine. And then I'll say I also want it a little wider, so I'll say 64 and 64, that's good enough. When I hit compile and go back there, I should be able to see that out there, right? Which is fine. Now maybe a little bit more, I guess, and I think I'll increase it on the y as well. Sorry, x. I'll say 64 by 64 by 64. That's the pane volume. Maybe I'll increase the height a little bit by 1 to 8. Okay, and if I hit compile, go back there, and I can see the pane volume in all its glory. Now I'll just move it up a little bit. I think it's a little too tall and not as wide. I think I should also do that in the x, the y. So I'll also make this 128. I don't need to make it this tall, so I can just make it 100. Yeah, that's good enough. That's also the height of the character. Yeah, that should be okay. And there you go. And if I just hit end, it'll snap to the ground. That'll be snap to the pivot. So I don't want that. I want this to be above a little bit, so that when the player enters, it will be notified. The engine will be notified. So that's the bottom part of the stairs. So when the player enters and walks through the stairs, and if he stays there, if he stays here like this, then the first 2 stairs, then he is gonna feel, I mean, the trigger is gonna it's gonna get triggered. And in fact, I'll increase it further in the x-axis. I'll make this 100 as well. All right, so now that makes it a proper box where the player can be trapped inside. And maybe I'll just increase it like this. Okay, so that two stairs and a part of a portion of the area outside these two stairs, right? That should be good enough for the player. And maybe I'll just go here and I'll say not hidden in game. So I don't know if it's sometimes it's buggy. Even when you uncheck this, you can still see it, or you cannot see it in the game at times. When I hit play, and there I can see it. And so now when I walk into this, I want the health to be I want the health to take a hit. I want the armor to take a hit, right? And which is fine. There you go. And I should be able to test this quite easily. Great. I'm going to hit escape, and I will get back to the event graph of this. When should it be triggered? It should be triggered when it should be triggered when a player enters. So we can use this, or we can use some other function. Let's see. Okay, so we'll use this function for checking whether the actor, or any of the actor that we want, our kind of actor. We can choose whatever we want. You can probably throw a box and it can detect that, but it again depends on what you want. But for us, we want the character to be going inside, and this guy and this trigger to recognize the character and start taking damage from the character. Start giving damage to the character rather. So out here, the other character, I'll first cast this to third person character, that is our character. Okay, once it's cast, I can actually access the functions that are inside the third person character blueprint, and the function is called take damage 5%. So if I look for that, take damage 5%, I can find it there. And now if I see that, and if I compile that, save that, what I'll do now is I'll go over to the HUD, not the HUD, I'll go over to the first person, click on health and make it 1, click on armor and also make this 100%. That's 1 and 1 each. Okay, and now when I hit compile, I should be able to see when I save this and play this, I should be able to see that nothing is going wrong here. Okay, when I go in, and you can see that it takes away it takes that 5% away from me, right? So again, if I go in, it takes that and it comes back and it does all of that. Now what I want to do is, while it's inside, I want this to be constantly depleting. Okay, so for that to happen, I'll have to go back to my paint volume, and I'll have to create a boolean variable to check whether the player is already inside the trigger. And if it is so, then if he's inside the trigger, then keep on taking damage. All right, and if it's not inside the trigger, that would be event actor end overlap, which means that he's outside the trigger. Then we'll turn this boolean off and it'll do its thing. Okay, so I'll just create a boolean variable first. Okay, so let's name this variable as is in volume. Okay, and then before we take the damage, what I'll do is I'll get the volume in here, and I'll say set as volume, and I'll set this to true, and then I'll go ahead and ask it to take the damage. Okay, and we're gonna need one more node, so I'll move the tick below, and I'll say end overlap. So that is when the actor or a character is jumped out of the volume. What we want to do now is we want to reset the is in volume variable to its default value, that is false. Okay, so when he's inside the volume, then we're gonna call we're going to set the is in volume to true, and then we're going to take a damage. Now after this, we're going to see whether the guy is still in the volume or not. So if he's still in the volume, then we're going to ask it to take more damage. That's how we're going to do this. Now we want to check whether is in volume is true, so we just drag the variable and put it inside the condition. And if it is true, then we first add a delay. Okay, we first add a delay, and we add a delay of, let's say, 0.5 seconds, or it's totally up to you. If you don't want a delay, then it's gonna run real quick. And then once that's completed, I want to take the damage again. I want to call the take damage again. So I'll do that, and I'll just reconnect this to this. Okay, and of course this is something I have to reroute. Not this. I'll just move this a little bit so that I'll understand where it's coming from. There it is. Okay, and there you go. right? So now that once that's done, I'll just double click here and like that, right? So that is pretty much it. Now of course I can move this here so that it will look a little neater. Okay, so again, so if this is true, okay, if as in volume is true, then we take damage, and then we check whether it's still true. Okay, and if it's not, then it automatically goes back to is in volume is false, right? So this thing, once the actor ends the overlap, once the actor jumps out, when the character jumps out, is in volume is false, and then it cannot really do anything, it cannot really get inside this code. But if he's still inside, then we wait for zero 0.5 seconds and we go back and call the damage, right? So let's compile this, let's go back and let's see if this works. Okay, so right now it's 1 and 1, so perfect. Now when I walk inside, and it's gonna start taking okay, I think, yeah, there you go, I wasn't really inside. So now it's gonna start taking the armor away, and then once I jump out, it's gonna start regenerating it, right? So again, I can just move inside again, and now it'll start taking the health away, right? And now if I walk out, uh if I jump out of the volume, you can see that the health stays right there, but the regeneration is happening. Okay, the armor regeneration is happening. So pretty much exactly how we want it, and of course we'll tweak it going forward, but it's working pretty fine. There's one little thing that we'll have to do is we have to go back to HUD, and we have to check whether for the regeneration of the armor, we want to check whether this thing is even regenerating. So if you just go back to, I think, third person character, go to event graph and inside the event tech, and this is on complete. So we can say whether event tech, inside event tech, I'll see whether, let's see. So in fact we can create a variable here and we'll say should regenerate. Okay, and this will be a boolean, right? And we'll compile that so that this is inside third person character, and out here, once this is inside the pane volume, first thing we'll do is before we actually even cast it, no, after we cast it, I'll just move this to the right. Okay, and I'll first set, I'll move this guy to the right as well. I'll first set should regenerate to false. Okay, because by default it will be set to true, and we haven't set that yet. We'll do that right now. And also we will add a reroute node like this. That looks better. There you go, right? And we will set this to false, and then also let's see, we'll also cast this and cast to third person character. Okay, and we don't really need to check for anything, so we'll just make it a pure cast. By right clicking, we'll make it a pure cast that we don't have any execution nodes. And as third person character, we just say should regenerate. That will be true. In fact, we'll add a delay of like 0.1 seconds, delay of 0.1. We don't need 0.2, so it will be a minor wait period, and then it will go back to true. Okay, and go back to third person character, and we will keep this by default as true and save that. Now when you hit play, and now when you go there, that's still on, and when you go inside, you won't see that flicker. Okay, and okay, that's because we haven't really checked here. Even though we have created this variable, we did not really check here. So this will be we'll have to create a branch. Okay, unless the branch is true, unless this is true, unless this is only if this is true should it go ahead and regenerate. Okay, when I hit compile, when I hit play, this will regenerate because that's going on. I mean, in fact, it's got nothing there. So if I move in, there you go. And now once you go inside there, you won't see that flicker anymore. Earlier you had that flicker. Now when I move out, 0.1 second later, the regeneration is gonna start. Okay, and when again I can walk around and I can do my things, and then again I can walk inside, I can just jump inside the paint volume and it'll start depleting again. Okay, when I walk up the stairs, that will stop, and of course I will not be. Now I can see the entire thing regenerating again and exactly how we want. And we just made a little tweak and we made that look good. Okay, so I'll just wait till everything is fine. Uh, and when I move in there again, re- uh, the depletion is starting and also the health is depleting. And now when you do that, the health is staying the same because the health is not going to auto regenerate. In fact, the health is going to be pickup based. So you might have something to pick up and the health will reach. You will regenerate your health that way, but will not have the health to regenerate automatically like the armor. Right, so that works pretty great. And that's about how to regenerate your armor and take damage away from your health or take damage away from your character. All of this works great, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.